Alrighty, so it's Wednesday, which means it's time to do another News of the Week episode. I know this year I've been all over the place in terms of the News of the Week episode, though I've been mainly doing it on Thursday, but today at least I am doing it on Wednesday, which is usually the day I do the News of the Week episode. And so far, there really hasn't been a lot of news that happened in this past week around MLS because we're still in the midst of the June international break, and most of the news has really been talked about the US men's national team, of how they look during this international break, and talk about who exactly locked their spot of going to Qatar with the US in the World Cup in November, and who potentially could be out of that discussion. And then there's been a lot of talks about these two friendlies that the US has played, which jump us straight into the first point, which we're going to do to kind of give a quick recap of the US versus Uruguay game that happened on Sunday. Now, keep in mind, I did not watch this game because I did have to work a bit overtime, and by the time I got home, it was like around the 80th minute of the game. So I thought, do I really want to watch the last 10 minutes? I mean, the game was 0-0 up to that point, and it did finish 0-0. But I thought, most of the game is already over. I mean, unless if I see like a dramatic goal that is scored by either of these teams, it kind of doesn't really change the fact that, I kind of had to watch the whole game to kind of see what was the story of this one, because in a friendly, result doesn't really matters. It's about how these players kind of perform, and so far, I think when you look at this game, I mean, the US did had some chances. I of course did eventually watch the highlights, but I thought the US had some chances. So does Uruguay, and that it was kind of a little bit similar to the Morocco game, except Uruguay, there was some grade A chances that they had. And how about the performance of Sean Johnson? Now, keep in mind, this game I thought Zach Steffen was going to be playing in goal, but there's got to be something going on with Zach Steffen and the U.S. men's national team, where he is basically been frozen out of potentially be the guy. I mean, it's hard to believe that he, for a long time, was considered to be the number one for this team, and that there was even talk just a year ago that he was pretty much locked in that spot. But now it seems like there is probably a fight between Matt Turner and Sean Johnson in that spot, because Sean Johnson had an incredible performance, including that big save that he made in the 63rd minute against like two Uruguayan player that was trying to tap it in from about 4 yards out. And yeah, again, this really now puts into the discussion of the fact that, well, that number one spot, it seems like we're now shifting in the discussion. Is it going to be Zach Steffen? Is it going to be Sean Johnson? Or is it even going to be Ethan Horvath, who didn't really made any appearance throughout this June camp, though I don't think he was actually part of the national team during the June camp. We don't know whether or not if he's going to be part of it in the future too. So for now, it seems like it's a discussion of it's either between Matt Turner and Sean Johnson in terms of that spot. And it's very interesting to talk about because, for Matt Turner, I think many people know that he is still going to be the number one. But, once he does go to Arsenal, we know that he probably won't get a lot of time. Whereas for Sean Johnson, he's still going to be the number one for NYCFC. He's going to play week in and week out, and that's where we get to the discussion of, do we trust a goalkeeper that play week in and week out, but in some extent a lesser league, or do we trust a goalkeeper that play maybe once or twice, like in the FA Cup or in the League Cup, that Matt Turner will get with Arsenal, and that he's not going to be kind of in good form because of not playing every single week, and you basically trust him to be the main goalkeeper heading into the World Cup. So yeah, this is a very interesting discussion that I think is pretty much the main talking point in terms of this goalkeeping situation that the U.S. had. Now, another discussion that the U.S. coming into this window has is the number 9 position, and unfortunately, that position, after the two friendly game that we've seen, we still have no idea. Like, when you look at the number 9 that started in this game, I mean, they weren't very impressive at all. And that, I think we're just going to continue that discussion, or maybe we probably won't even know what the answer is going to be, because for me, I still think Jesus Ferreira probably will get the nod, because he's been in incredible form for FC Dallas, but we'll see whether or not if he can translate into the national team. Another guy that been in discussion is Ricardo Pepi, but Pepi seems to kind of lost that spot a little bit because of how bad he's been doing with Augsburg this past season. And then there's other players that could be on the wild card. What was it? Haji Wright was one of those players, but I didn't think he looked that good in this June camp. I mean, he did score a goal. It was from the penalty spot, but even in the game against Morocco, he kind of looked lackluster. So yeah, I mean, it's still just a huge, big question mark in terms of the number 9 position, and probably we won't even figure it out by the time the World Cup has begun. I mean, ideally, we want to figure out these two kind of spot that has been the biggest question mark for this team, but there could be a case that we might not figure it out, and that we might have to go into this World Cup without actually having a decent number 9, which we've seen before where teams can do well without a decent number 9. I mean, I remember when France won the World Cup in 2018. I mean, I would say that they had a good number 9 in Olivier Giroud, but Giroud was more kind of a guy that is kind of like a hole up number 9 rather than a goal scorer, because he actually ended up with no goals during the World Cup, but France was still able to win it without a single goal from their striker. But ideally for the US, you would want to have that goal scored. And speaking of goal scored, that's another thing that the US are still having big question. Like, I can see that this team can do well in terms of the build up and does well in terms of creating chances, but it's all about finish out those chances and also those final balls that I feel like this team still kind of lacks at time. And that could be a little bit concerned when you do face against some of the best team in the world Cup, where if you don't punish them when you're up, you could potentially come back to lose the game because of so that's going to be another thing the US would need to work on heading into this World Cup in November. Now, moving on from talking about the US, because I know you want me to talk a little bit more about it, I might make a video talk about what has gone right and what has gone wrong so far for the US, or maybe make a video of who I think has impressed so far this June camp, or who hasn't done so. But moving on in terms of talk about the whole US men's national team stuff, to once again continue to talk about the whole Charlotte FC and Miguel Angel Ramirez kind of firing saga that's going on. I mean, you knew I wasn't going to let go of this topic, and certainly it feels like Charlotte FC is not going to let go of this topic, because I know after last week we talked about the sporting director Zoran Krneta kind of maybe trying to just put an end to the conversation of why exactly Miguel Angel Ramirez was fired. Yeah, that doesn't seem like it worked, because now it seems like Captain Christian Fuchs probably put out the strongest statement, and maybe the reason why Miguel Angel Ramirez was eventually fired by Charlotte FC. And basically Fuchs basically said about how there was definitely some toxicity between Miguel Angel Ramirez and certainly the locker room. And if that, of course, is the case, and especially the way that Fuchs basically mentioned that he never really had a good relationship with Miguel Angel Ramirez, and he even go as far as saying that they were underperformed being with the way under their head coach, which that kind of sounds weird, because I thought they were overperforming with the way that when you look at the quality of this team should not be as good as what they're currently is right now with the squad that they had. And that, yeah, I think that kind of maybe along with the toxicity between the locker room might be led to the fire of Miguel Angel Ramirez. And if that's the case, then yeah, I think it now all makes sense, because when you have a combination of not getting along with the people in the front office, and also your players don't actually want to play for you and don't have a good relationship, then that's a big reason why a head coach basically fire nowadays. I mean again. And if that, of course, is the real truth, which I feel like that maybe is the case, because if your captain basically talks about this and speak to the media openly about this, then yeah, it's probably the real truth. And that, yeah, it's sad the fact that Miguel Angel Ramirez, who again, he's done very well for Charlotte FC and probably really kind of work miracles with the way that he has got a team that this team does not look like a team that should be competing for playoff position with the quality that they have. But unfortunately, because of the toxic relationship behind the scene and also the front office drama that's going on, I think now we know why exactly Miguel Angel Ramirez was fired from Charlotte FC. Now, but moving on in terms of the next news, so Canada has announced that they actually canceled the Panama friendly. Well, actually, they announced this a couple of hours before they were set to play against Panama at BC Place. And apparently, the reason behind this is because the players, they decided that they're going to go on strike. That they were not happy how the Canadian Soccer Association was compensating some of that World Cup prize money that they were given. And yeah, I mean, in some way, I don't think this is a big surprise that this is such a mess that the CSA basically involved again with their players, and even in some extents their fans, because this has been kind of the problem for the CSA for the past couple of years. I mean, if you thought the U.S. Soccer Federation was an incompetent federation, you have seen nothing from the Canadian Soccer Association, at least from what I heard with a lot of Canadians fans, that they're very frustrated with the leadership with the CSA, and that, it just feels like this not only is a huge missed opportunity with the way that this team has done something historic that only one other Canadian team has done back in 1988, which is reach the World Cup, but also the fact that with all the success, and it seems like Canada is about to embark on a golden generation, the CSA still find a way to screw this up. And that, yeah, I mean, and this game against Panama, this kind of mess in terms of creating a friendly there all kind of started when the fact that they were supposed to play against Iran, or oh god, I did it again. It's actually pronounced Iran and not Iran. But it all started with them. We're going to play against Iran, but then there was pressure from the fans are saying that, yeah, you better not play against a team that has created a lot of political thing. And then on a short notice, they basically decided to play against Panama. And then all of a sudden, the players are not happy about the whole prize money compensation, and it just snowballed from there. And that in some way I was also not surprised that, yeah, something tells me this is probably going to be canceled because of how messy that the CSA has got to it. And also I would think that the CSA, if there's one thing that at least I'll give the US Soccer Federation credit, is that at least they've been able to get these friendlies right. And even though they were overcharging people with attending these friendlies, at least they can be able to get these national team, and especially well-known national teams that could be in the World Cup to play and can test the team of how they do. That's just not been the case for the CSA. I mean, the CSA has just done a poor job in terms of trying to get these international friendly, trying to get some of these good teams to come to play against Canada and kind of just test out how Canada will do heading into the World Cup. And yeah, now from what I also heard is that it seems like the players are back in training, because I think they figured out the dispute, so there will be no question about the Nations League game. Because imagine if this keeps going on, oh boy, those Nations League game is going to be a problem, and that there could be a case where Canada might be forfeiting some of the Nations League game, which would be a huge setback for a team that this was supposed to be a celebration for this team reaching the World Cup. And yet, once again, as time and time again, we've seen the CSA continue to screw things up, and have really just kind of once again is a huge slap in the face in terms of fan interest of the fact that this team was able to do something only one other Canadian team was able to do back in the 80s. Now, moving on, in terms of the next news, we got the Columbus Crew consider a DP move for former Houston Dynamo striker Mauro Manotas, and I can definitely see this happen. Though on a designated player move, yeah, that feels like it's a little bit of a desperation from this Crew team, because, like I said, they really don't have a reliable number 9 ever since Jersey Zardes moved on from them. Like, they were hoping that Miguel Berry was going to be that guy, and Berry hasn't really had the best season so far, and that it seemed like the Crew are now really desperate in terms of getting a guy to replace Zardes. And again, Mauro Manotas, that's a name that I haven't heard in a couple of years, because he's been playing in Liga MX and playing for Tijuana's Cholos. I have no idea how he is doing down there, but we've seen that Mauro Manotas can be a proven goal scorer, especially with the Houston Dynamo, and he can be a guy that can be a double-digit goal scorer every single year, even if he is in the Dynamo team that isn't the most doesn't have all the quality on the attacking end. But yeah, this will be definitely a decent move, though on a designated player contract. I think that's a little bit of an outstretch. I mean, Manotas is a decent player, but on a DP move, it just feels like this is a desperation for the Columbus Crew to desperately look for a number 9 and hope that of course will help them fix the problem with the lack of attacking that they have been going throughout this season. Now, Liga MX champion Atlas could eye a move for DC United attacker Edison Flores, and this is also another move I can see happening, because Edison Flores, he not done very well so far this season for DC, or he really hasn't done any good things for DC United ever since he come into the league. And that, you talk about a bust designated player. I think Edison Flores basically now belongs in that list because, with the injuries and also the underperforming, I just feel like maybe it is kind of time for DC to maybe cut ties with him. And especially Flores has had some good success in Liga MX before he got to DC. He played for a team that no longer exists now with Monacres Varela, and that, it feels like maybe he's kind of one of those players that does well in Liga MX, but maybe once he go to MLS, it doesn't translate the same. I mean, we've seen before with a lot of Liga MX players, just because they do well in that league doesn't mean it always work out in MLS. And I feel like maybe this is the case with Edison Flores, and that it won't be a big surprise if he is eventually going to make his move back down to Mexico. Now, moving on in terms of the next news, some injury news. So RSL captain Damir Kreilach is going to be undergoing back surgery, and there's no timeline exactly when he's going to come back, although there's reports that it could be as at least 3 months before he does come back from this RSL team. And while, I mentioned RSL has done well without their star player and probably the most important player that they had on this team, you just kind of sense that they this is still a huge blow to this team. And that, yeah, I mean, I really think that if RSL did have Damir Kreilach, this team would be definitely a contender for the Western Conference crown, because the way that they've been playing even without Damir Kreilach is just another element of, I just have no idea how RSL is performing at the rate that they are right now. But this still, again, it's a huge blow for RSL, and that they're just hoping that Damir Kreilach will be back for this season. And again, from what I heard, it seems like it's going to be at least 3 months, which means that, most likely it could be September or October that he could be back. He might be back in time if RSL is going to make a playoff run. And yeah, again, we'll see whether or not if he is going to return. And that, again, I'm no doctor in terms of, I don't know exactly the recovery time for back surgery, but all I know is that it's probably going to be a while before he's going to be coming back to this team. And then finally, Toronto FC have won the 2020 Canadian Championship against Forge FC on penalty kick shootout. So congratulations to TFC. I think they're the first MLS team so far this season. Well, actually, they're not the first MLS team. They're the second MLS team to win some silverware, because how can I forget that the Seattle Sounder become the first MLS team in history to win CCL. But at least for TFC, as bad as this season has been for them, they won something, and it's something that I'm actually shocked the fact that this game happened, because, we talked about the Canadian Championship in 2020, and it's been delayed on and off, and then eventually it was supposed to happen last year, but then it seemed like, as all thing does with the CSA, they basically decided to keep delaying. But it seems like they decided that this is finally the time to play the game, and I think maybe it caught some people off guard, because I don't think a lot of people, and maybe even some TFC fans, don't realize the fact that, we're actually playing a championship game, Canadian Championship final game. I mean, I thought that thing doesn't exist anymore, but yeah, they did play it, and they were able to beat Forge FC on penalties. And again, I feel like this is also kind of a game where, I mean, if Forge did win this game, then it would still be historic and kind of be more talked about. But because with TFC winning this, and I guess maybe the only history is that they now won eight Canadian Championship, which is still the most, but just also the fact that we knew that it's one of these MLS teams that's going to win the Canadian Championship. And also, not to mention, this Canadian Championship that TFC won, the bad news is this winning this edition doesn't mean you're going to be going to CCL in 2023. It's actually the one in the current edition of the Canadian Championship that will get you a spot to CCL. So in some way, this was almost like a friendly game with a trophy up in line, but I guess TFC will take it, because like I said, it's been a bad season for Bob Bradley team, but they can get a silverware. And anytime when you get a silverware, which not every team is able to say that every single year, and we've seen many teams that have gone through a long drought without having a silverware in their trophy cabinet, but at least TFC were able to do so. And yeah, congratulations to Toronto FC winning a long delayed 2020 Canadian Championship final. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these news? Again, there really isn't a lot of news that has happened in this past week. But as we head into the summer transfer window, especially with those European transfer windows start to open, I guarantee that there's going to be more news of players potentially going to be going overseas during the summer. And not to mention, MLS is going to open their transfer window very soon. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys hit a like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know also in the comments below if there's any news I didn't mention here on the board that you want me to talk about. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.